address, Scott, you can just talk about the deal in general. Um, in fact, I would recommend not sharing the address because you want to get it tied up first.
Sure. So, like I said, one part of the building, or I should say, it's two separate tax ID numbers, but they're side by side. It used to be a welding store, and then they did some modifications and updates to make it more, I would say, amenable for a growing facility. And then one that's technically legal, but kind of in the gray, just how they operate, because that's just how it is. And then the
Hmm.
other structure used to be a restaurant at one time. And if you think of like a donut shop without any seating, it's kind of set up like that. And
Okay.
about less than a mile away, there's a casino called Firekeepers. And I did some unearthing to see what kind of economical like improvements or things that the city or the township are going to be doing. It turns out that Ford is going to be putting in their electronic, was it? No, yeah, EV plant station in that area. So they've already broken ground and they're going to be needing a lot of housing, if not a lot more businesses to support that kind of infrastructure. So the guy's asking, I think, around $120,000 for both properties. I think that's a deal.
And does it sound like a good deal at those numbers?
It sounds like a great deal just because those two can be converted back into we have to rezone it, just demo everything, and you can put housing there, like two units there.
But you would need to be rezoned first.
Hmm.
So, really, really strong suggestion. Having made this mistake myself, anytime you buy something and it relies on rezoning or some sort of permit or some sort of thing to happen, make your contract contingent on getting that rezoning done. And the seller has to cooperate with you and sign paperwork to help you get rezoned because you don't want to go into a deal expecting a permit or a rezoning or some other third party entity to do something for you that you can't control, and then you're left holding the bag if it doesn't work.
That's a great suggestion. I would have never thought to think of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Ask
so I
me how I know.
just want to make sure the letter of intent or the contract because I'm wanting to write him a contract.
Yeah, yeah. In the
So,
contract, it would
mhm,
be written up such that that this purchase of the property is contingent on
mhm.
what you need to have happen, whatever that is for your situation.
Got it. Okay.
Just
And
like if
then
you had financing, right? Like it's subject to financing. This would be subject to permit and uh,
mhm.
rezoning approvals by the local jurisdiction.
What time frame do you think would be appropriate? Because I've never done this before in terms of requesting for cooperation and all that. So
Um,
14 days, 30
that
days?
no, no, I wouldn't even put a date on it. I would put so
Ah,
many days after this thing happens,
okay. Kind of open-ended. Okay.
right? Because you can't
So
control.
contingent, right? That's
Right,
what you're
it's a
saying.
contingency. Exactly. You can't control when a bank approves a finance, or you can't
Hmm.
control when a third party government entity decides to approve your application for rezoning or whatever.
Mm,
They meet on their timeline and they get to their agenda on their on based on their rules, not yours.
Good to go?
that's good. That's good. Thank you so much for that.
So if anybody is not muted and is talking, you can mute.
Nah, no worries.
How do you do this? How do I
Kirk,
take you off?
if you're not muted, if you could, please. Thanks.
Huh?
Go ahead. What
I
you
didn't
saying?
know that either. I was surprised when, or I love that advice, Paul. I didn't know it either. So that was good.
I've made that mistake, and so what we do when we purchased land to develop, and we need to get it rezoned, we make it contingent on the rezoning getting approved, no matter how long it takes. And
Mm,
the sellers obviously don't like it, but you'll say, well, go and find and try and sell this land to D.R. Horton or any kind of big developer, and see what they do. They're going to do the same thing. Like they don't lose money, and they don't buy land to maybe build on it. They will not buy land until it is shovel ready, and it's not shovel ready until all the permits are done.
Have you bought land that has a septic and well possibly on it? Because this one does. So
Hmm.
this one's gonna
Yeah,
be,
you
it's
want
like,
to get it inspected for sure.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking like if this is going to be a condo conversion, or combining the lots together so we can use, as much as we can in terms of the real estate. Um, we'd have to figure out, probably an engineered field and all that. So
Engineer.
possibly an
Yeah.
engineered field to
And you have to pay
accommodate the
for it.
size. Yeah. And there's a huge cost to that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when sellers balk and say, well, I say, well, I'm spending money, and so I can still lose money here because the
Mhm.
engineer may do their work and find out that it doesn't do the thing that we want to do with it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and one of the reasons why this is a really attractive opportunity is because I'm interested in actually doing it, but it's a huge undertaking that I've never done. So I was listening to a few of your videos and getting people involved or equity or having some kind of stake into it, and giving
Well, it's
them the
actually a
run of the
pretty
mill.
good topic that maybe I'll talk to real quickly because that's one thing Vera asked as well for us to cover is basically this idea of raising capital. And so the purpose of the deal finders community is very much focused on finding deals and then exiting it how is appropriate. And most of the time, if you're just getting started, you don't have a lot of cash, a wholesale is probably the best play because you may not have the cash to be able to make that to to be able to close on the deal yourself by yourself. Really. And so you don't have to wholesale though. You could partner with somebody. You could raise capital and then own the property. And I always like to bring people, or I always like to go into a property, get it under contract with the intent of, if I had the money, I would buy this. And I'm just going to go find the money because the deal is such a good deal. If I decide to sign it, I sign it. Okay. Um, so
Is he frozen? He's frozen.
I froze for a second. It was a
Yeah.
weird look. And there are basically 5 ways to, all right. There's basically 5 ways to um, exit a given property. And one of them is just to buy it yourself. Okay. The other one is to assign it to a third party and just not get involved. The third way, and this is where you start raising capital, is where you actually have a lender come in, private money lender or a bank or whatever, but a private money lender come in and they fund it for you. This could be hard money, it could be a bank, it could be private money. But basically, a lender comes in and either provides you some or all of the money that you need to buy the property. And they put a lien against the property, and then that lien is like a debt position against the property. And so they get paid some interest rate that you've predetermined. Whether you make money or not, they're getting a debt payment. The fourth way is if, let's say, me and Scott and Vera and Oliver decided to jump in and do a deal together. We bought a storage facility in East Texas, and we're jumping in. Then we're now partners. Some of us would bring some money, some of us would bring some expertise, but all 4 of us would be active members of the LLC that's operating this business. Okay. And that's something that we can all do, and it's appropriate and reasonable, and there's nothing untoward about that, right? We go in together, we split the profits and losses according to our operating agreement, and that's how we operate. The 5th way is a syndication. And anytime that you're having to do a syndication, um, or anytime you're saying, hey, invest money with me and I'll give you a return, but you have no control over the outcome, you have no voting permission of the outcome, that's a security. And the SEC and FinCEN takes that very seriously, and they want you to go through the proper steps to do that. And you would need to hire the services of a qualified legal professional to get, typically a SEC attorney that specializes in just this. And they'll draft up the documents. And let's say Celeste wants to come in on the deal that me, Scott, Vera, Oliver, and Paul put together. But let's say Earl, Celeste, and Harvey have some money in their IRA and they want to each put in 50 grand. But they're passive investors. They would be limited partners. And we would have to go through the proper steps with an attorney to file the right paperwork, do the right disclosures, to do that legally. And that's what they call syndication. and we can structure that however we want, and they have to review our deal and decide if they want to be into it or not. What questions do you have about that? You're still muted, Scott.
So I actually have been pitched when I had money um, for a few uh, syndications, and it's really well thought out. That the pitch deck that they put together was really well thought out. My
Hmm.
question is, when you put the syndication together, there are numbers, but then there are no like numbers that we would want to be more intimate with. It just talks about like the return, the terms, and in
Hmm.
the event that you were needing to exit, the penalties and whatnot. And then kind of it talks about the when you would get yeah, paid or when there's just a whole bunch of things that you have to consider. What are the primary things that as you're reading a syndication pitch docket, what do you look for?
When you're reading the document, you want to understand what it's saying.
Hmm.
Fundamentally, that's the point. When you're underwriting or reviewing a potential deal to invest in, you definitely want to understand the deal. It feels like if there's a good investment thesis, like do these people have they done their research basically? And you're really really voting on the jockey in this situation. The jockey is the sponsor, and the deal is the horse in this analogy. And so you want a horse that's fast, right? But you also want someone who knows how to ride that horse, right? Because without a jockey, then um, the horse can go wherever it wants, right? And so it's really really important that you have a sponsor that has experience and knows what they're doing, um, because they control everything. So an example that I gave, it was Oliver, Scott, Vera, and Paul go into a deal together, and we're the co-sponsors. The four of us make all the decisions. Everybody else who joins in as a limited partner has zero control. All they're doing is putting in money and expecting a return based on the performance of the deal, and how well we operate the deal is what determines the outcome of that deal. So when you're reviewing those things, you're like, do these guys actually have a track record of success? Like, have they done this before? Have they thought this through? Have they planned for contingencies if things don't go perfectly to plan? Because it never does. No deal goes perfectly to plan. And when it doesn't go to plan, what kind of um, contingencies have they put in place? And so one of the things I like to look for is what occupancy rate can this a given asset perform at, and at least have business break even. So if it's like 75%, then that's probably a really good deal. If it's like 90% and they don't make money unless they get 90% occupancy, that makes me super nervous, because like 95 is probably about the best way, the best operating occupancy rate you can get, but they can only make money if they are above 90. That makes me nervous,
Hmm.
right? So if it's at 73%, you're like, okay, so they can do a pretty poor job and at least pay their bills and not lose my money.
So, okay, the focus is what's the security or what's the
There is no security.
yeah, what that's I'm trying to figure out the right word for this.
There's no guarantee, and there's no. It's like you're investing in a small business, and you're buying the shares of a stock is what you're doing.
Right.
Shares of a company.
It's like the preferred return, the average annual rate of return, and then the cash on cash, which are the things that you talked about in your training.
Hmm.
And so when you're looking at a syndication, is that primarily the determining factors in why you'd want to get into it, or is it the people, or is it the level of
Both,
their
both, both.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Some combination. I mean, you're the one making the investment, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, mm, how confident are you that you're going to be able to do two things, or that they're going to be able to do two things: protect my money and get me the return that they say that's possible. Like, you want to protect your capital first. You don't want to lose money, and then are they going to get me a return?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I remember this particular syndication here in Michigan. They were asking. There were three properties that they were wanting to combine together to do a condo conversion, and they were offering a traditional 70-30 split with a minimum of 7% preferred return. Um,
hmm
it sounded reasonable. And then the cap, I think the what do you call it? The average the annual return of the average annual return is like 17.95% with the cash on cash return of 8.22%.
hmm
It sounded good, but then and I forgot how many years that they were wanting to hold on to it. I think they were making money in year 3. So they were losing money because of the ad value that they were wanting to do. So does that also play into account? Like, we're not going to make any money, but here's my money. I'm going to be seeing money coming back to me in 2-3 years. It's probably just more individual comfort then at that point.
And so
I'm not sure I understand the
pause.
question.
Yeah.
So this particular syndication was saying that they weren't going to make money in the first year. They weren't making money in the second year because of the conversion that they were doing.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was in
which is
year.
not uncommon, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So in
Well,
year
you're doing a
3,
when you're doing a
that's
value add play, and you need to raise a bunch of capital to do repairs and to stabilize a property that is not performing well, then it's not uncommon to take 6, 12, 18 months before there's cash flow because there's no revenue that they didn't buy into revenue. They are to income. They bought into a property that need to be turned around. So like a good example of this would be a motel conversion.
Mhm.
So they take a beat up Howard Johnson motel, for example, and they basically shut down the hotel part of it, and then they convert it over to a multifamily property. That takes time. So there's maybe 100 units in this thing, and they have to rehab. And so they'll take it in sections, and they'll rehab one, and they'll put somebody in there, and they'll rehab the next one, and that may take them 12, 18 months to do it, and it may take 73% of it to be occupied before they start making money on it, right?
Okay. Okay, and you're saying that's typical. So it's a waiting
I'll
game.
say it's not unusual, is what I would say.
It's not unusual. Okay. Because I was thinking about the velocity of money, right? Like
hmm
3 years, that's
I
a long
love the.
time.
Hey, Vera, you saying something? You can unmute real quick.
You're still on mute.
It's not me. Can
There
you
you
hear
go.
me now?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Scott. I don't mean to cut you off, but what I'm kind of interested in everything that he's saying, but kind of looking at some point doing the waterfall breakdown, like how it breaks down, seeing the
The
math.
capital stack.
I get the
Yeah, yeah,
capital
yeah.
stack. So I mean, I don't know if we could do it today, but that's exactly what he's talking
That's
about.
what you're
Everything,
after.
I get it, but
You want the next level.
yeah, what can I say? Well, before I get there, I want it.
I understand. I have something here that I'll show you guys.
Cool. I'll go back on mute. But yes, Scott,
That it's
thank you.
not
I mean, that was
not all the calculations, but I'll show
okay.
you like a capital stack that
So
I think
so
kind of helps.
so do you mind if I try to explain what I think a waterfall stack
Yeah,
is?
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm assuming that it refers to the method of distributing the profits from
hmm
a deal among investors or partners, right? On a
hmm
pre-agreed understanding of the, I don't know, like, I guess, hurdles or benchmarks, right? And the structure ensures that the returns are shared fairly,
hmm
and that these passive investors who contribute capital, obviously they're passive, but essentially the profits would be distributed in a hierarchical manner. Is that how I understand you?
Yeah.
So typical waterfalls, how I see it, is that you have the return of capital, and then you have perhaps the preferred return, and then you have the profit splits after the preferred. Is that how I understand it?
hmm
Okay. All right.
So let me share my screen real quickly, actually. Share screen.
Because I remember seeing a waterfall overview, and I think I read it like 50,000 times just trying to understand it, and this is kind of what I had. It's like 5 million was the total investment. The preferred return is 8%.
Mhm.
And then there's profit tiers, right? Up to 12% of like the in, internal rate of return. 80% would be split to the investors, and I think 20% would be split to the partnership or sponsors, I should say,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And then there's like a then there's like another split of like 70% to investors and 30% to like sponsors. Anyway,
You can
it
set it up any number of ways that you
okay.
like. There's not like a given rule, but there are some common practices, is what I'd put it. So let me just show you this real quickly. Share the screen, window, share.
Oh
We got
yeah.
some inception going on. Okay. Share,
Oh, cool.
present. Okay. So this is a deal that me and Peter were a part of in Houston last year, and the sponsor team put this together. So this is a pro forma of a deal that has 300 and some units, and it basically broke down the potential income in year one, what the vacancy rate, what the projected. This is all pro forma, right? Like future guesses, what the expenses would be, and then what the net operating income of that property would be at the end of each year. Okay. Um, so that's just kind of like a pro forma. This is done in a spreadsheet, and then presented here so that you can see it. And then what they do is they say, here's the investment projections. So if an investor were to put in $150,000, then in year one, they would get only $4,000 back, a small return of 2%. But then it continues to get better as they improve the property. And then what their potential return on investment is based on a given cap rate. So say in 5 years when they sell or refinance and they get a cap rate of either anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5, this would be the return of capital, right? And so they calculate the internal rate of return, which is how much money you got over that period, what the equity multiplier is, and what the average cost cash on cash return is over that time, and then the annualized return of which notice the difference here. The difference between a cap rate of 4.5 and 5.5 is the difference of getting a 2.63 times your money or 1.69 times your money, or 13% versus 32. And that's why cap rates are so powerful. And your cap rate can change quite a bit based on what's happening in the marketplace, kind of outside of your control. But what you can control is the net operating income. And so that's why it's so important to have an efficient operation that has a NOI that is improving over time. And that's how you like force appreciation inside of a business like this, is because you're increasing the net income of the company. And
You're saying
so
that you're saying to increase that that the operating expenses increase, or
no,
is
no,
that what
no.
you just said?
Like the net income is better. Like the
Okay.
operating expenses are more efficient. Like there's
Oh,
more. There's two levers: more income, less expenses. That's all there is,
gotcha.
right?
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
so more income, and your expenses will probably be in check with the like 45% or so of the. But maybe you may be able to dial that into 43%. What that does is increases your NOI.
Hmm.
And let's say at a average cap rate of 5%, if your NOI number changes, then the outcome improves dramatically. So just a little bit of operational improvement in these businesses, these multifamily projects, can make a really big difference in the return to both the investor and to the sponsor team. And so they're doing the same thing here for a smaller investment. And so this is like the capital stack. And so I always like to put this visual inside of a presentation when I'm showing this to somebody. So there's the debt. In this case, this is like a $48 million purchase. And so the 34 million right here, 35 million is the debt. The preferred equity is what the LPs would put that in. See? Hey, Lucy. And then the limited partners are come in with their A, B, or C stack right here. So the limited partners are what the syndication is raising, right? Preferred equity is like a big institution comes in and puts a big chunk of cash in there, and then the general partners put in some cash, and they get 10% or 10-20% ownership of this particular capital stack. This could be completely inverted, and the general partners could get 80%, and the limited partners could get 20%. It just depends on the deal. Does that help, Vera?
That helps.
Yes, thank you.
And so how to actually do this is beyond the scope of the school group. Like, this is what we get into with the Dream Partners. This is how we teach them how to actually go and uh, build the capital stack, how to raise the money, how to qualify for the debt financing, how to raise the capital. We help them create this document, which you can imagine takes a lot more time than what we're doing here.
What's the expected time frame or rule of thumb for something, if someone finds an opportunity and then now they need to raise capital? What's that time frame before you can start
It
raising?
varies.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
like as soon as you can.
Yeah.
As soon as you get the property under contract, and as soon as it looks like it's going to bear out, then you need to get with your syndication attorney and get your documents ready so that you can start raising capital.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what's the kind of the rule of thumb for in the event that someone was the general partner? I mean, what's their skin in the game? Is it 5%? Is it
Sometimes it's none. Sometimes
none?
it's finding the deal.
Okay. Okay. And then it comes with the waterfall effect. I like that. In fact, I didn't think about that until Vera just mentioned it, but it really goes to show that everything will be distributed accordingly and fairly. That's kind
Yeah.
of neat.
So and basically money goes, it's first in, first out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the senior financing, the debt gets paid first,
Mm-hmm.
then preferred equity if there is any, then the limited partners, then the general partners. So the general partners earn uh, get the returns last. Now, what's not shown here, and what a lot of general partners do, which is I think appropriate, is they'll charge like a 2% management fee. So they're getting paid while this deal is going on, a fairly modest management fee for managing all the details of the property manager and the property itself and the books and et cetera, because that's cost money, right?
That sounds fair.
And then I'm gonna just throw a wrench in this. In the event that the deal doesn't flow as according to plan, and you've already
Mhm.
gotten the money, and then the next thing you know, things aren't working.
Mhm.
To how do you salvage a deal after it's been consumed and it's not working out according to plan, or maybe somebody gets sick, or I don't know, worst case scenario.
It's like how do you operate a business? Like you're asking
Yeah.
like there are reams and reams of books
Okay, fine.
written on how to manage businesses. That's what you're asking.
Well, I mean, a $48 million project. If it goes off the rails, I mean, there's going to be some really upset people. And I was thinking to myself, oh boy.
Well, and there's no guarantee you're not going to lose money. I mean, like the answer is sometimes people lose money when they're in business. And so when you're investing uh, as a limited partner, if you're investing money into an Apple share or into a REIT or into a syndication, you could lose your money.
Yeah, I was thinking that there should be some kind of fail safes in there, but that's just me
But
wishful
that's
thinking.
why you want to invest with people who know what they're doing and who have a
Yeah.
track record, so
Well,
that
Well, if you want
yeah.
fail
they can
safes,
bob and yeah.
yeah, if you want fail safes, invest in a U.S. Treasury and get whatever the U.S. Treasury
Ah,
gets.
no thanks.
Right? Like the more risk you take, or the higher return you want, the more risk you're going to take.
Yep,
Yeah.
I
of
mean, that's
course.
just the reality of business.
Yeah.
Higher the risk.
But people don't get it. Like, well, I want guarantees. Like, I cannot make a guarantee. I can
Well,
guarantee that there's death and taxes.
I,
That's
I
all I
get
can
I
guarantee.
guess what I was trying to, get an understanding is, how I'm assuming that the person who's put together the deal as how would you say it? Um, stress test their numbers.
Well, you don't know that.
Oh,
That they should have, even if they did. like COVID happens and you didn't plan for it.
One of the things I do like is, for example, if you say a severe case, what's your loan to value ratio, right? LTV. With extreme case of 50% rental of the property or something like that, right? I like that, knowing on worst case what's it going to be.
Yeah.
How bad is it?
Like how much wiggle room does that project can it handle, right? And that's a nice thing to know. So like, okay, if they're occupied, they would at least break even. That gives me a little more comfort that there's that if they're not as good as they say they are, they can still manage to make payments. Yep. Okay, I'd like to open it up to anybody else who's on the call. We don't have to talk about capital raising only on here. We have about maybe 15 more minutes.
I've got a small lot that is right next to a gas station in Plano, Texas. As you know, Plano, Texas is a pretty busy city, right?
Yep.
North of Dallas. And the size of it is 0.06. My house, for example, sits on 0.16, right? So it's a thin slice. It's like 50 feet or something like that, or maybe 100 feet wide, but it's not very wide. And so he wants $800,000. It's vacant. What do you think about that?
That's crazy. What are you going to do with
That's
it?
what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And anytime land is next to a, you said it's next to a gas station?
Yes, next to a gas station.
There's soil leakage guaranteed going on there that you'd have to factor in. Always.
Gotcha. Not that it matters.
It's not if it happens, it's just when it happens and how bad.
When it happens, exactly. Not that it matters, but the pumps are a little further away. But yeah, it still doesn't matter. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not my specialty, but I know that's something you got to watch out for when you're buying anything near a gas station.
Roger that.
Paul, I've got a couple of questions. If nobody else does. Okay, going back and thank you for going over that the sheet that you just did. That was very helpful. This may be a stupid question, but when you're doing the due diligence, do you just accept that the numbers that they gave you are correct, or how do you? Because I mean,
no.
Okay, that's
you
what
assume they're wrong, and you haven't proved that they're right.
So how do you do that? What do you do?
Show me your work. I want tax returns. I want bank statements. I want leases. I want the profit and loss. I want your QuickBooks file. I want everything.
And partners can ask for that.
Buyers can ask for that.
Investors can ask for that.
Well, buyers can, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Is there is like when someone you put it under contract?
Yeah. No. What you were just showing with the raising capital for your $48 million deal. Now, obviously, I know you guys knew what you were doing. But if somebody were to present you a deal and show you this work, do you assume that everything is correct in the math with the? No.
What I do is I take their inputs and then I run it through my own model and just to see if my numbers match up to theirs.
Okay.
Because this is pro forma. This is an anticipation, right? That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
And a good sponsor will have what they call a deal room, and a deal room will have a breakdown of all the facts. So they'll have the leases. They'll have their homework that they had the seller provide them, and they'll have so that if you're a high detail math based kind of person, that you can go in and dig in. Most investors actually don't. I'm always surprised by that, but most people they may interrogate the data once, but then once they feel like it passed their sniff test, then they'll invest. Is my experience.
Well, you know me.
With a few exceptions. Yeah,
I'm a numbers
if you're
guy.
a numbers guy, you're a high detail, so you're going to dig into it, right?
Okay. And then I know, and maybe it's beyond the scope of this call today, but I know there are different rules for accredited and non-accredited investors. with respect to raising capital and syndication deals. Am I correct on that? So
Correct.
like,
So if you're not familiar, accredited investors, for those who are watching, accredited investor is a status that someone has based on their net worth. The current rules are if you have a net worth of $1 million, not including your personal residence, or you make like, I forget, 250 or something.
I believe it's 200 a person or
Yeah,
300 a
200
couple.
or 300 as a married couple. That's right.
Yeah.
And you made that last year, and you anticipate making that next year or something like that. That's the current definition of what a accredited investor is. And basically, the reason they have that is so that the SEC and the regulators that come up with this is they don't want sponsors like us preying people who are unsophisticated, and we're taking their last $5,000 for an investment that may not work out because they could lose their money, and they don't have money to lose. If you've been able to accumulate $1 million net worth, the assumption is that you have enough wherewithal to do your own due diligence. You don't need to be protected by the government.
Okay, because I mean there are certain rules, right? Like I'm a non-accredited investor, so I couldn't, like, if you had been raising capital for that deal, there's no way I could have invested in that. Correct?
That's not true. It depends on the deal. So each syndication can elect to whether or not they can accept non-accredited investors or not. Yeah, and so they can only take 35.
Man, he had to freeze during right there, huh?
Oh, you just froze, man. 35 what? You just froze.
35. So there are 35 non-accredited investors, and
okay.
you have to have a substantive relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Isn't there a cap
substantive
for limited? I'm sorry, for non-credit, a cap? Like they can
35.
Only 30. Okay, but in terms of the amount that they're able to put in, like $1 million.
I don't know.
I think there's
I
a
don't think
cap.
so.
I think if there's a cap at
There
$1
might be.
million.
I've never bumped into that before.
Oh. Wow.
I mean, if they're non-accredited, then they have less than $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm. No, in terms of the syndication that is offering, this offer to people who aren't credited, the syndication is capped at how much they can gather.
It's syndication on the number of accredited investors, not. Yeah, there may be some ceiling that you can't do non-accredited if you're raising some number. I've never heard of that though.
Well, maybe I just made it up. I don't know.
Then two other quick things, and this goes back to some of the trainings I've done for residential real estate. Do we need an LLC whenever we purchase a commercial real estate piece of property? And
you don't have to. You don't have to. I'll answer that quickly. You don't have to. It's probably preferable if you're going to be in business to do a entity, which you can set up for a few $100s in most states in 2 weeks or less. So most people spend a lot of time thinking about having an entity. That's like the last thing to worry about. Like, it is so easy to do.
Okay, because I mean, I know for residential, I know you should set up an LLC for each piece of residential property you get, which
No,
leads.
No. That would be crazy.
Well, also leads to the next question. Let's say I'm at the point now where I just want to do wholesaling. Do I need to buy, or do I need to get an LLC for a piece of property that I'm going to wholesale?
What I would do is set up again, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
Here's what I did. A specialized special purpose entity for just wholesaling. And I did that for all properties. So no matter what state I'm in, I have a entity that operates and puts properties under contract, and then assigns its interest over to what I buy, or assigns interest to third-party buyers. So all it does is market and make assignment fees.
And a special purposed entity is what?
You can call it Kitzman Properties LLC.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's
in Florida.
The function is to make offers with the intent to assign it. Gotcha. Yeah.
With the intent to disperse it to the appropriate, which could be yourself.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
It never holds properties.
Because I have a blanket LLC already for my business, and I was just wondering if when I get the first.
Does it do anything?
At the moment, it's just there. It's just a placeholder.
Then that's probably the one you would do.
Okay, so in other words, the LLC would be purchasing the property with the rights to assign it.
Yeah, it would be putting it under contract.
Right.
And that's
with
what
the
I mean.
rights
Yeah,
to
yeah.
assign it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, the LLC would be putting. Okay, not Harvey Kitzman, but the LLC. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're the single member of it, I
Yes.
assume.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Because-
With the intent to do that. Okay.
What's great about that is it rolls to your personal tax return, so it makes your tax return simple.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
You bet. I'm not sure I like Riverside. This there's we freeze a lot. I don't like it.
And we saw twins and stuff in the very beginning, which is odd.
No, I think that was just user error on both our parts.
Hey, don't come on now.
You go ahead, Pamela. You're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you.
All right.
Try now.
Okay. I was trying to do the letter of intents, and I was doing
Uh-huh.
it under, what is it called? The Triple Play Pro or whatever.
Yep.
And when it puts down the purchase, like, let's say it was, I've seen some of them where the purchase price was more, even though I put down a certain purchase price, it seems like they didn't drop it down enough, and I wanted to put a lower purchase price down.
Sure.
How do I also adjust like the owner finance?
Same way. I mean, you're gonna have to like go do the math yourself versus just use whatever was automatically created for you.
Okay.
But Jeff has gone through several sessions of that in the group, and he just puts up a Word document and he walks you through how he does it. I would follow that.
Okay. Just was making sure on that. And when if I do have somebody who's, I guess when the first step is to send that letter of intent before you send the contract,
Yes.
and
Yes,
just
the letter
see
of
if
intent
they
is-
bite.
Right. The letter of intent is to open the negotiations. See if you're in the same ballpark.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And when we send that, we just, do you usually send it where you make the adjustments, you download it, you don't send them like a hard copy, but
What I do is I download the Word document, make whatever adjustments to it that I think is appropriate. So because what I like about the Triple Play Pro is it puts it in the format for you super fast. So just put in fake numbers for all I care. Just get the format. And
Mhm.
then if you want to then adjust the numbers based on your calculations, which you can do very quickly using Jeff's system. Then you save that Word document or to a PDF.
okay.
And then you email them a PDF. And if I even like to send a physical copy of it, if I can't really get a hold of them, or if it's not landing for some reason, I'll send them a one-page cover letter in the PDF. Here are 3 ways I can buy your property. Which of these is most to your liking? And then physically mail a letter to them, because what you're doing is you're building a pipeline. 3-6 months down the road, you'll get phone calls from that letter.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
You bet. And I know you had a bunch of the ones that you're working on, and so I feel like you're really close to like doing the right stuff. And so now it's just like LOIs
Mhm.
in front of those sellers or brokers, and just do that consistently.
Yeah, I'm working on it, and like I said, I finally figured out how to do this part of it, so I knocked that out. Before I sent
Nice.
before I sent them all off, what I sent to you, I'm obviously going to go through everything and double check everything, but at least now I know how to do the printout and adjust
that
everything.
format is good. It's perfect.
Okay,
And
thank you.
just make sure and delete there's a little blue text at the bottom.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Delete that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put in the commas and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
Actually did print out hard copies, so just so I can figure out what I'm doing. And so now that I've got it
Yep.
game plan, I'll have them all sent out this week.
Sweet. Okay, we got a couple minutes more. Anybody else have a pressing question before we adjourn?
Yes, Paul. This is Roger.
Hey, Roger.
Got a real quick question for you. After we did our marketing blueprint yesterday, what is the difference between the commercial
Deal finder.
the commercial deal finder and then the commercial investor pro?
So commercial, for everybody who's listening to this, commercial deal finder is the software that allows you to find off-market deals. Okay. And so it's a data repository of all the public records across all the counties in the U.S. It has all the commercial records in there, and you can do filters to find which one you want to talk to.
Right.
It can send letters. It can send. It can do skip traces for you. Okay, from that software. Commercial Investor Pro is what you get access to if you're a annual member or you invested in the accelerator, or your dream partner. So the Commercial Investor Pro is the CRM and the automation and AI tools that you get access by investing at that level. And what it does is it allows you to create workflows where you're like, okay, here's my lead. I've talked to them. You can put notes in there about what they said, and then you can create automation that sends them a follow-up in so long. You can put them into a 52-week email series that we've pre-written for you, and it just keeps them top of mind. And if you haven't gone through an onboarding call with our team for that, then you can email support at Real Estate 101 and request it and say, hey, I need to do a onboarding call for the accelerator, and they'll send you a link to book a call with Hubert, who will walk you through the software and get you trained up. I think, Oliver, you need to do that same thing, right? Yeah. So just email support at realestate101.com. Here, I'll type that in here.
And I emailed support, and I'm just waiting for them to respond to it.
We've had a lot of people join in the last couple of weeks, so bear with them.
Understood.
And it's holidays so we're kind of on a skeleton staff, and we have a whole bunch of new people. So bear with them. They'll get to you as soon as they can.
I got you. Thanks.
One more question, Paul. I think I had told you that I had done a couple of months ago Peter's 5-day challenge, and in that software, it enabled me to send out offers. So I guess I have a combination of two different types of software.
Yeah, we're really
because from what you just said, it doesn't sound like with the commercial deal finder. Say that again.
We really like the Triple Play Pro now. It just we find that's working better in the marketplace right now.
I think I think I get that. It's just it would be a few days before I can write a $2,000 check.
I understand. No, but
so I want to be able to.
You don't need a
send out
check for that. No, hold up. You don't need a check for the AAA Pro.
Really?
That's in the school membership. Yeah.
It is.
I'm confused. I don't know what's going on anymore.
Okay.
Well,
Let's not get confused. The AAA Pro software is included in the school membership. So if you are a paying member or in the middle of a 7-day trial, you have access to the AAA Pro software inside the school community.
Perfect.
And that's what Pamela was just doing, right? She's using the AAA Pro software to put in basic information. It pumps out a Word document that gets emailed to you, and then you can either use that or make changes to it if you want. And that's included in the monthly subscription to this group.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul.
You bet. You bet. So Scott, are you less confused now?
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. Love it. Jace, did you have you went off mute a second ago. Do you have something to add in?
Yeah, I was wondering who owns that commercial software where it has all the data of the owners.
That's
and all that.
Commercial Deal
Yeah,
Finder. Yeah.
who owns that?
We own the domain and we own the brand. It's a white labeled software.
Okay,
We are not software developers.
I am. So I was just curious.
It won't take you long to figure it out.
Okay,
We
got it.
we are not at liberty to divulge who is the part of our contract is we can't say.
Oh, no worries, man. I was just curious.
But it's not hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Chase.
I'm glad you said that, Paul. So I know not to mention it ever.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, we're not trying to hide anything. We just can't.
Right,
Um,
right.
Right. We just
I
can't
get
say.
it.
Right.
So I have one last thing. I have 2 multi-units coming up. They're off market, and then there's single family residential properties. Curious to know, how would you make offers in a bundle, or do you make offers individually?
A bundle for sure. We buy them all together, but I mean, they're the individual parcels. You have 2 choices. You can do one purchase and sale agreement that lists all the parcel names, or you can do individual offers per parcel. I far prefer doing one offer for the whole thing.
So a bundle. So one offer for the entire.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason I would break it up into individual contracts is if I had different exit strategies per parcel.
I see. And that's a great thing to bring up, just because I was concerned about.
You might assign one, you might buy
Yeah.
one, yeah, which I have done before. But I did that on a big parcel once, and it was a nightmare. You had to do individual title searches, you had to do individual closings, and so I had to sign like 10 properties at once, and versus just one. It was dumb. So don't do that.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward
so
to see if I can
confusing.
get this one done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. How about anybody else? We have Malik and Kirk, Lori, Celeste. You guys got any questions that we help you with? Celeste says she's good. Thanks for so I think a couple of folks. So I messed up. So in the free group, I posted the Coffee with Paul on Zoom, and then on the paid group, I posted Coffee with Paul with Riverside. So anybody who got mixed up with that, I apologize. It was my mistake.
Yeah. Get it together, Paul.
Yeah, got too many irons in the fire.
So we're going to be sticking with which platform next time around?
I don't know.
Yeah, you've
Follow the links.
you've frozen way too many times just throughout this call. You like
Yeah,
on the
I've
verge
noticed
of
that.
like I don't know, something profound, and then you'd freeze.
And it's always when it's the most profound. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the most important thing to know when you're earning money is
Mother of God.
Yeah.
Do you have a Slack group, Paul?
Yeah. And why am I the one freezing all the time? Do I have a Slack group?
Yeah. Is there
No, we have a school community. Yeah,
School?
no Slack.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, there's no slackers here, sir.
All right. I'll leave
We
now.
use Slack for our internal business, but not for customers.
Customers.
All right. Any last questions before we go?
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You bet.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
Peace out. Bye, Oliver.
Yeah.
Ooh, Celeste.
Peace.